All right, hey everyone. So next session we have Scale. I have Jack from the Scale team here. Let me bring him on board. So yeah, good to see you. Do you have a presentation for us
I
today?
do. I do. So I can share my screen from the
Yeah,
pleasure to be here today. I have to say this is quite the innovation seeing Mainnet come together like this. I'm sure we would all rather be doing it in person, but the amount of coordination and effort to bring it together, hats off to the entire Masari team and Ryan and team. So great work and pleasure to be a part of this. So many of you probably know about Scale, many of you probably don't. So we're going to do a quick review, and then this is all about proof of work sessions and talking about progress and status updates. So we will get into a bit of that as well. And I think I'll give a little spoiler and say I'm particularly excited about the fact this is called Mainnet because Scale is launching Mainnet this month. We've been working on this since 2017. It's been a lot of the keyboards have been burning up, a lot of customer development, partnership work, economic work, coding, and we're finally ready. So excited to make that happen. All right, so what is Scale? So I've been describing this lately more as an Ethereum as a service. I think a lot of you are aware of platforms as a service or software as a service where you pay for something over a period of time and get access to it. And Scale operates in the same manner. You buy a Scale chain from the network, you rent it, and you pay for it, and then you don't pay gas fees. You're paying for the chain over a period of time, and you can use it to the greatest extent you can based off the amount of compute resources that you've effectively rented from the network. And there's other mechanisms built in to prevent DOSing and provide the security elements that gas provides. But instead of paying per transaction on your end users, the developer and the chain, essentially operators, can pay for the chain. And then what you get in that chain is a really fast version of Ethereum. And these are also dApp specific. So every dApp gets its own chain. And it connects back to the Ethereum mainnet. So 1,000 nodes in the Scale network can run 8,000 independent chains. 10,000 could run 80,000. And this is at the smallest increment, meaning the smallest chain size that you could select. The block times are sub-second, throughput's very high, up to 2,000 transactions per second for a large chain. And also there's been a lot of work to make these privacy and cost configurable. So we'll get into what that means. And there's also other elements of being able to configure your chain to run file storage. And you could run a fully decentralized application, soup to nuts, the whole thing, the front end, everything entirely on a Scale chain. You can run side chains, you can just run a blockchain, whatever, connect it back to the Ethereum mainnet. All this works in Scale. And we're also working on building a rollup functionality in Scale for situations where that matters. All right, we get a lot of questions about Scale saying, was this a side chain? And I think everyone knows side chains, traditional side chains, are not very secure. And so we try to do all of these things like fraud-proof mechanisms, et cetera, to try to make it so side chains are more secure. So we're not really relying on consensus in that side chain. The way elastic sidechains work, or I've been calling it more recently even dynamic shards, is dynamically there's a large network, and dynamically through a random function, you're able to pull a subset of those nodes that work in that individual shard or individual elastic sidechain. And so you could pull 32 nodes or 16 nodes from 5,000 nodes, and then we're able to rotate them. And so we have all of the performance properties of a fast sidechain, in addition to the other advantages and the Scale consensus and other things they've done to optimize networking. But you also get security from the bigger group because you're randomly assigning and rotating. So that's what elastic sidechains are. We'll get into more detail. And really it comes around to this whole premise of randomness, rotation, and incentives. And if you think about it, the dApp doesn't necessarily need to have thousands and thousands of validators holding their individual state. But what they want is an attack vector where you have to attack thousands of validators in order to get to their state. So that's the goal here. And that's why randomly using BLS threshold signatures and a RANDAO hybrid mashup, we're able to generate random numbers and assign for entropy for chains. Then we're able to rotate them frequently. The network's doing this all autonomously, by the way. It's not we or a person. It's all coded into the Ethereum mainnet and to each Scale node. The last piece here is incentives. So So the Ethereum mainnet is actually built, and Scale is built in and around the Ethereum network. So in the Ethereum network, every node also needs to have equivalent of hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of US dollars worth of Scale tokens staked into the Ethereum mainnet. And if they're a bad actor, the penalty is they lose that. Also, if they're a good actor, every month they get fees from developers that are renting chains. They also get issuance. So we create this mechanism where it just makes sense to be a good actor because you get paid, and the cost of attack on any small chain is just not worth the cost of attack in aggregate to actually pull off a 2/3 attack. So it's a novel mechanism, and it's really designed entirely right now, and it's designed to support the Ethereum mainnet and Ethereum developers, and that's where we're seeing a lot of the action take place, or all the action from our perspective. Okay, so typically blockchains are one size fits all, and you share everything with everyone. In enterprise, it's very different, right? You buy what you need, you can configure things to your likings based off the features available within configuration. This doesn't mean customization. Customization doesn't scale, but configuration scales, and it scales in SaaS. That's why SaaS has done so well in the centralized world in Web 2. Now, what we're trying to do is create a decentralized configuration panel where size, cost, and privacy are all configurable. And so essentially, as a developer, you pay for what you need. And so this happens in a way that if you see here this new chart, there's a yellow centerpiece called the node core. That centerpiece is a shared resource across the entire network. Every node in the network has one of those, and it does administration, auditing, and orchestration of the network. Okay, and it speaks back to the Ethereum mainnet. Then each one of these smaller components is called a virtualized subnode. And what happens is each one could be paired with 16 other virtualized subnodes on other validator nodes, and then they all work for a dApp, and they carry the state, they support that dApp, but you also could buy as a dApp a bigger chunk, or even the entire node, and get a lot more compute resource, a lot more storage. These are high performance machines that are all running in the Scale network, run by professional validators in an open, decentralized manner, but you don't give up on your ability as a developer to get what you need in terms of size, cost, and configuration. So that's the design principle there. And it's something that, again, no reinvention of the wheel, just really applying modern day containerization and virtualization, Docker, and other techniques to bring enterprise grade product to a decentralized network in a decentralized way. As a Scale network, similar to Ethereum and Bitcoin, is also decentralized protocol run by the community. All right, so that is the way that this functions. And I know people are probably waiting for, we've got some people excited to hear more about the updates. So I will do a time check. We'll be getting to those here in just a second. So I want to talk about Scale and Ethereum. So one, Scale is built into Ethereum. There's a whole series of smart contracts that are going to be deployed with Mainnet launch in June. And what's going to happen is that supports the functionality of the Scale network. But also developers can connect the Web3 connector, which Web3.js connects down into Ethereum. And what will happen in the future is that those dApps also get to point to the Scale chain and connect to Scale. And then through an interchain messaging agent, are able to effectively use Scale and Ethereum. And through an API-based wallet, the end user doesn't even need to know they're using the Scale chain. And they get to use Ethereum in a gasless way other than when they enter and leave. And they get sub-second block times. And they give up they have to open up to new security premises because they're using another network that's built in and around Ethereum. But what they get in return are a number of really critical advantages for us to get to the point where we have many, many dApps with 1 million users a day. So that's what we're looking for, 1 million daily active users a day. And we think this design mechanism can scale to get there. So talked earlier about size, cost, and privacy configuration. Talked about Scales being built not just for, but on Ethereum. And here we go. And so we're going to talk a little bit about timelines now. And we're going to talk about, here we go, interoperability. Last piece I want to say, composability is absolutely critical. And it does the developer zero good to connect to EVM in the Scale chain if it's not composable and interoperable with the rest of the Ethereum mainnet, and it can't fit into this web of the building block Legos we're seeing evolve here. So EVM lives in every Scale chain, and the entire stack, there's a lot of effort that goes into making sure all of these things work seamlessly. Some of them take a little elbow grease to get up and running and integration work, but then we do. But that's a critical design feature when it comes to scaling Ethereum. So right now, there's been a ton of excitement about this. There's over 40 dApps that are signed up and testing in an innovator program and are excited about mainnet launch across a number of different categories. There's been a number of security efforts taking place thus far. So 2 full smart contract audits by Consensus Diligence and QuantStamp. We had a HackerOne white hat bounty that's live now. So please check that out if you have the type of skills. I think there's a over $80,000 project at play here to do white hat hacks. We also have this canary in the coal mine dApp, where the first dApp that will launch will be the Canary dApp, and there'll be 25,000 USD PEG and Ether put into that dApp that day, and anybody can just take it, and the community will thank you. And the community just asks, hey, please let us know how you did this. So other dApps will be able to watch this and understand what's happening, and there's just a lot less friction to steal money from an intentional canary sourcing security flaws than there is other ways, which we've seen happen across other networks when we've had issues with that regard. So timelines. All right, so we're looking. So the incentivized testnet launched on May 20th, and it went really, really well. It has 0 issues. It's been running since May 20th. Has not gone down. We've found three bugs that are being fixed. There's another feature being rolled out that manages rotation functionality in the network that will be rolled out into this testnet this next week. And then the developer SDK will be released on June 22nd with the developer testnet. And then we're looking at launching mainnet in a potentially a restricted fashion in late June. And then through a partnership with Consensus, launching Activate in July as that platform comes together, which I think is a really good segue into us talking about what proof of use is. So proof of use is a method of launching a network, and the goal is to launch a healthy network. Instead of just launching the token and the token gets used as a trading vehicle and it's something to speculate on, with proof of use, you launch a network and the token has to be used, and it can't be traded for 90 days. And the network has to run as a network, and the token is a piece of software, and it truly does its job, as opposed to being speculated on in any way. It's impossible to speculate because it's all locked. And so the goal there is to be more compliant, as well as launch a healthy network. And the mechanics are, you have to be decentralized, open source. The community needs to run this. And then you initiate an auction so that you can let the market, not a central group, set a price. And then you have to have this period where there's no liquidity. So those are the components, and you can learn more about this through the Brooklyn project and through Consensus Activate. They're doing a lot of really, we think, phenomenal things to help decentralized networks get up and running and kind of get through this chicken and egg component, and also have a more long-term perspective where health and value of the system is prioritized over short-term gain. So that's how the network will launch. And I will stop presenting now, and just want to say thank you, and we can roll into the next phase here of some Q&A.
Thank you. Great video too. That was a lot of great visuals in there.
Thanks. I thank the team for that. I wish I had those skills, but
Oh, that was excellent. So I have a couple of questions here. So what are some of the particular, not have to name examples, but like the particular use cases that are coming to Uscale? Is it more gaming? Is it like enterprise use cases? What are you tending to see?
Yeah, so like I showed earlier, we're seeing use cases across the board, but this across a number of different categories. Basically, wherever there's a middleman taking more than their fair share, and there's a dApp there to disrupt, there are dApps building. But what we're seeing in particular is it comes down to use case scenarios as opposed to categories. And the major use cases are: do I care about latency? So do I want to have fast block times? And then do I care about cost? And so if I'm getting hit with 10, 20 cents or more per transaction, what does that do to the usage model? And also, do I care, is a 15-second block time optimal? Or can I I improve user experience if the block times are every second? And so you start seeing use cases where more is brought on chain because you're not encumbered by the delay and the lag and the cost. So those live across DeFi, gaming, B2B disruptors, consumer internet, events, online advertising tech, et cetera.
Excellent. No, that's great to hear. Another one that just kind of popped up when we running through the demo. So when you spin up a scale chain, is there any way, are they homogeneous in the sense that they're all pretty much the same, they operate the same way, or is there any like customizability when you buy a chain?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you're able to configure it to your liking. So there's a set amount, and that's where customization and configuration become decoupled. So customization, you can kind of actually literally get in and build and change things. And these configurable options are saying there's a list and you can pick your size, your storage, privacy requirements. And right now it's that, but in the future, there's other things like there's a speedy game mode being developed. There's ways to minimize the amount that can leave the chain each day. Like somebody could say, hey, I want this to be like an ATM. You can only take $1,000 out a day, or 100 or X% of your holdings. And so these are the things that we're just gathering through the Innovator program and making it, plug and play, but through a developer interface, through a command line interface, but letting it all live across the network and then be easily applied to whatever the chain is.
No, that's very fascinating. All the different the customizability, all the different use cases can be built off of that. I had a couple questions that popped in here as well. So we talked about why some of the advantages, why someone would use the Scale platform over using a base layer. But are there any downsides why someone would want to use the first layer as compared to Scale?
Well, so it depends. So if we're comparing, if you look at, if I want to use Ethereum and I want to access the entire developer tooling and ecosystem, there's a huge advantage there than of just using Ethereum, right? And then your questions are, do I want to use Scale? Do I want to try to do something else? And Scale really gives you a phenomenal user experience advantage and performance advantage. And but you have to trust another set of validators as well, right? You have another network that's kind of cooperating. And then to say, do I want that combination, or do I want to just go entirely over to a new layer one that doesn't have the same tooling and ecosystem development, security proven that Ethereum has? And one nice thing about the Scale mainnet, or the test net when it launched, hasn't gone down. And one thing is, I think we have a great team, but a core team and community building this, but there's also a lot of this is built into Ethereum. This stuff's already working. It's been up for a long, long time. And it's a huge advantage as opposed to having to create your own blockchain from scratch.
Exactly. Yeah, I completely, I mean, you kind of have that base platform that you're able to kind of build. It just makes it that much easier to build everything off of. And I kind of see that's the way these Web3 stacks are going to end up playing out. So another question, what are some of the specific projects being built on Scale that you are excited about?
So we will be releasing a full list and have of everyone who opts in. Some people are pretty secretive and they're but there's contractually we're waiting, and then we'll do a big announcement. And I'm excited about it. What I'll tell you though is I'm incredibly excited about a lot of these. Some are already getting amazing traction. Other ones have phenomenal business models and they're just getting ready to launch. So really a mixture of anywhere from like a 2-person team to, massive teams that are looking at launching on the network. So when I have full rights to share those details, I'm chomping at the bit. I will do so. So please, good question. Please be patient.
No, good answer. Good answer. So you talked a little bit about the upcoming. I guess you could say token sale. It's kind of like a different way of going about it. I find it very interesting what you're working with Consensus Codify with on the Activate platform, and what led you in that direction as opposed to a more traditional option of a token generation event, a token distribution event.
Yeah, I think one piece is we really took a long-term perspective and personal incentives for like investors and team. There's really long lockups, right? and which is great. And that's how we traditionally work. And so you think for us, we're like collectively, everybody in the SKALE community has really strong incentives to make this thing work over a long period of time. So we thought, how can we launch this so this works and we have a healthy network, and the network's in the strongest position in 3 years and 5 years and 10 years, as opposed to in 3 months or 6 months. And so part of it was, we thought, what is the optimal way to make network health and long-term success come about? What's the most developer-friendly, like user-friendly way to do this? And lastly, compliance plays a big factor, right? And compliance is like this moving target. The goalposts are changing all the time. And so I thought Consensus had a really good approach, and and that also played a big role.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I think no, that's great. We know the group over there too. They're fantastic. So really interested to see when that rolls out and how it works out. Should be great to see.
Yeah, I'm excited.
That's great. So we are running up on time. So where can we learn more about the platform and stay up to date with all the developments?
Yeah, so if you go to skale.network and SKALE with a K, you'll find the Telegram channel, the Discord channel, Twitter. You can follow me at Jack O'Halloran, or go follow at SKALE Network, and that will guide you. If you're a developer, please go to Discord, and we'll get you up and running, or Validator. If you're interested in staking or other components, please come to the Telegram.
Excellent. Thank you, Jack. Much appreciated.
Thank you.